We are now bringing forward a ballot initiative that will roll back the gas tax permanently to infinity and beyond. I do have a clipboard here. If you'd like to get on our email list, please put your name and email address down here. We'd love to have you, because when this rolls out, we will be asking, again, for the grassroots, the Tea Parties, the conservatives, the average person to go out there and collect the signatures, because that's how we will do it, and we can do it. Thank you.
Marty for governor.
Now, I don't know. Dan, can you speak from your mic?
Yeah.
He's got a question, but I don't want to word it incorrectly. So I'll let him ask it of you.
Mr. Lamb, I wanted to ask you a question. How do you feel about the Liberals decrying the big oil profits of 5 to 10% per gallon, but neglect to tell people about the 20 to 40% gas tax that's added to every gallon? Can you comment on that?
I think you just answered it. It's absurd, and they talk about the big oil company profits and subsidies to the oil industry, while totally ignoring the alternative energy like Solyndra, Evergreen Solar in Massachusetts, where we've shoveled billions and billions of taxpayer dollars into industries that have not yet proven themselves. In fact, they've proven themselves not viable industries yet to invest in. Private sector won't invest. Right now, oil, we need it. Our cars run on gas, 99% of them, except for the, what's the one they're making in, where is it, Sweden, that cost each taxpayer $500,000 per car to subsidize. No, we need to respond with facts, explain what the taxes are, why they're worthless, and as the prior speaker said, they're just trying to find other sources of revenue to go into the general fund to create more spending opportunities. They're going to say it's needed for roads and bridges, and if you cut taxes, then teachers and firefighters and police will all have to be laid off. That's total garbage. We know that we can go through, again, as the prior speakers, with an axe, we can cut out unnecessary spending, and we need to force them to do that. Bring a ballot initiative like this, we can bring the issues forward, and we can also help candidates who are running against the incumbents by pointing out what the incumbents stand for. My state rep that I ran against, and unfortunately lost to, who was a tax and spend liberal, came out with a press release and a statement on the proposed transportation bill tax hikes, saying on the tolls that she believes there's toll inequalities in Massachusetts that need to be dealt with. And she just left it at that. And of course all of the liberals and the moonbats out there are saying, oh, she's right, isn't she wonderful? What she didn't say is, but she's saying now, not in her press release, but in reality, she has signed on to bills and amendments that will create tolls at the borders and tolls by overhead monitors on roads that run north to south, not just east to west, like 495, 128, Route 91, because it's not fair that we only pay tolls commuting east to west and west to east, so we need to tax everybody. That's what we're dealing with.
Get rid of the pike tolls.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
Thank you, Marty. Did that answer your question, Dan?
Yes.
At long last, Father Tom Duggan. I'm trying to think of a nickname for you, because in Chelmsford we have Carmen Thomas Cristiano, who is known as the Godfather of Chelmsford, because he's in, he does all his TV shows and stuff. As everybody here probably knows, Tom is the president, the editor of the Valley Patriot. Currently he is the publisher, owner, editor, layout production at Valley Patriot Inc. He's an on-air radio host, a news source, a reporter, an entertainer, and a frustrated comedian, and I will let him tell us what that means. In the past, he was the political director at Mass Citizens Alliance, columnist reporter at Rumbo News, and producer at Greater Media Boston, and he is also a school board member in Lawrence. He was educated at UMass Lowell and Northern Essex Community College, and I can't wait to hear what he has to say about this topic.
Well done.
Wow. Frustrated comedian, huh? Apparently you've heard my show. I'm going to do what I always do. I'm going to try and piss people off, because that's what I do. I'd like to answer the question that the Lowell Sun reporter posed, except, as always, he left. And we noticed on Saturday at the Boston Tea Party rally, there were a lot of reporters there at the very beginning. In fact, the two quotes they used in the Boston Globe were quotes that, things that I said in the first 5 minutes of the rally. But I noticed looking out over the crowd, 20 minutes into the rally, he was gone too. And I'd like to answer his question. I think just about everything that I have to say today answers his question, although I'm sure a lot of Tea Party members are not going to like what I have to say, but I will be brief. How do we get people more excited about the Tea Party? How do we get people more excited about getting involved as a Tea Party? Stop marrying the Republican Party. I know Kristen, wow, really? I know Kirsten left, by the way, another one who comes, speaks, and then when her time to speak is over, leaves. I love Kirsten, but that's not leadership. She didn't come here today with 25 or 100 or 200 people that she corralled to help the Tea Party have a successful rally. She came with her significant other, and she left. We have to stop marrying the Republican Party for a number of reasons. One of which is, well, they haven't earned it. I remember in the last presidential election, there were a number of people running for Congress and Senate who the Tea Party supported. Halfway through the election, they started taking shots at the Tea Party because they thought it was politically expedient. Now, because I'm a reporter and because I have to deal with people of all stripes, I deal with Democrats on a regular basis. And I have to tell you that by attacking the Democrat Party, by attacking, quote, Democrats, we push people in the middle away. We push independents away. We push conservative Democrats who might agree with us on things like EBT cards away. And nothing illustrated that more, as I announced on Saturday, than State Senator Katie Ives. She's a left-wing, tree-hugging moonbat who thinks that the biggest threat to our society is not terrorism or taxes or our government being too big. She thinks it's global warming. Yet, it was this left-wing, tree-hugging, hippie-loving Democrat state senator who introduced a measure in the Senate, and it will get a vote, to have photo ID put on all EBT cards. That came from a Democrat. She was actually going to speak here today. We actually called her to ask her to speak today. She initially said yes, but then she had a family commitment that she couldn't be. But we're trying to get her to speak for next year. And that's going to get the ire of a lot of people in the Tea Party. The fringe of our own movement, those that we fail to police, they're going to be yelling and screaming, and they're going to be going ballistic on Facebook. She's a liberal. Why is she allowed to speak at a Tea Party rally? Because we don't allow people to just come up here and speak because they agree with everything that we believe in. We want people to come up and speak about issues. It's not about the speaker. It's not about Tom Duggan. It's not about Katie Ives. It's not about Sandy Martinez. It's about the issues that are important to us. And if there's a left-wing, hippie-loving, tree-hugging Democrat who wants to help us put photo IDs on all EBT cards to stop the fraud and the waste, why wouldn't we have her at a Tea Party rally? Why wouldn't we be working with her across the aisle? You know, there are a lot of other conservative Democrats who would be Republicans if they thought they could get away with it. But this is Massachusetts, after all, and so they don't. But when those who are in our ranks that we fail to police are on Facebook, calling local talk radio shows, speaking at rallies, and speaking in a demeaning way, in an insulting, demeaning way toward Democrats, they're not helping. If you want to attack somebody, we ought to be attacking the Democrat leadership, because they're the ones that don't get it. It's Bob DeLeo who doesn't get it. It's Governor Patrick who doesn't get it. It's Nancy Pelosi who doesn't get it. It's Barack Obama who doesn't get it. But there are many people among the rank and file Democrats who do. And when they decide that maybe they'd be willing to work with us, and they show up at a Tea Party meeting or a Tea Party rally, and they hear things like socialist and communist and you're the enemy, they leave having confirmed everything the media told us that we were, told them that we were. And so my message to the Tea Party is, number one, we need to start policing our own. We need to stop letting the right-wing faction of the Tea Party control the debate. The Tea Party stands for three things: lowering taxes, slowing the growth of government, and protecting the Constitution. Not the social issues. If you are, as I am, pro-life, I'm more pro-life than anybody you're ever going to meet. I don't even make exception for rape and incest. But that has no place at a Tea Party meeting. That has no place at a Tea Party rally. If you are against gay marriage, if you are against the death penalty, if you have a really strong position on a social issue, go join another group whose sole function, like Mass Citizens for Life, is to fight against abortions. And hell, I'll even join you. I'll help you sign up. But that has no place at a Tea Party. And as long as we continue to allow the right-wing faction of our own party, of which I agree with philosophically, as long as we allow them to try to hijack our meetings and our rallies, as long as we allow them to wring their hands and yell as loud as they can that we're not conservative enough, that we shouldn't be part of the Tea Party because we're not helping them on the social issues, we're always going to fail. Always. You cannot argue about abortion as a Tea Party group and not be marginalized by the press and painted as a bunch of kooks, which drives people away. I really wish he was here, because I think the reporter probably should hear this answer. The fact is, we as a Tea Party, we all are concerned about social issues. We all have ideas about abortion, gay marriage, the death penalty, but there's a time and a place, and it's not the Tea Party. We have a specific message, and that's to lower taxes, to slow the growth of government. That's a fight we can win. Talking about taxes is a fight we can win. And you know, if you are one of those social conservatives like myself, but you also happen to be one of the people on the far right that want to co-opt the Tea Party so that we will push your agenda, you ought to be happy that the Tea Party is going to be single issue on taxes. Because if we were to cut taxes across the board, let's just pick a number, 10%. That's 10% less money going for government-funded abortions, isn't it? That's 10% less money going to welfare, isn't it? So, to answer his question, as my speech, and then I'll conclude, how we get people more excited? You don't get people more excited by pushing them away with divisive language. You get them more excited by letting them know that there might be something for them. They might be a gay American. They might be somebody who's gay, who's fiscally conservative, who shows up at a Tea Party meeting or a Tea Party rally and hears all this anti-gay marriage talk, and they leave. We lose them. We want them on our side. We want fiscal conservative gays, fiscal conservative pro-abortion people, fiscal conservative people who are for and against the death penalty to be coming to our meetings and coming to our rallies and helping us lower taxes. That benefits everybody. My final, oh boy, maybe I'll save that for another. Rally. But my final point here is, you know, I'm always asked by people who are candidates who call my office at the Valley Patriot and they say, Tom, you've been working on campaigns since 1985. Can you give me some advice? I'm a conservative. How do I run this campaign? What should I do? The answer is really simple. We have to start talking like Democrats. That doesn't mean co-opt their positions. It means start talking like them, because the media, 95% of them, are in bed with the Democrats. And they're in bed with the Democrats because they're liberals. And what do liberals respond to? Emotion. So when a Republican runs for office and a Republican talks about welfare, we talk about it in terms of economics. We talk about it in terms of how much money's being wasted. We talk about it in terms of how it's growing government, how it's out of control. When the liberal talks about welfare, they talk about little Jose in Lawrence who's going to bed hungry tonight because he doesn't have any food. What we need to start doing is co-opting their language, not their positions. We need to have candidates who are going to get up and talk about welfare reform and talk about little Jose and Lawrence. And the perfect example is the governor has absolutely no interest whatsoever in reforming the home heating assistance program where there is just rampant corruption. We've covered it and exposed it and talked about it on our radio show. You know, the fact is, Governor Patrick doesn't care one bit about little Jose and Lawrence who's going to bed with no heat in the middle of February, because he will do nothing to stop the rampant waste and corruption that's going on in the home heating fuel assistance program. But where are the Republicans that are talking about it like that? See, if we can co-opt their message, if we can have Republican conservative candidates talking about poor Jose and Lawrence going to bed with no heat in the middle of February and how he's freezing because the governor isn't doing anything about the women and the men who are out there with 5 different names, getting 5 different welfare cards, getting home heating assistance when they don't deserve it. When we can start co-opting that language, we can start winning. Because the press in Massachusetts has conditioned the average reader, the average voter, to think emotionally about political issues. And when a Republican gets up and talks about it in fiscal terms, it's boring. We lose their interest. So I hope that answers the Lowell Sun reporter's question who left. Hopefully it answers the question of some of the candidates who call us and say, you know, what can we do? How can we level the playing field? That's the answer. Thank you.
So we stay on time. I'm not going to ask Tom any questions. Our next speaker is Paul Craney with Mass Fiscal Alliance. He's currently the executive director of that organization. He graduated from Gordon College in Wenham, Massachusetts, and is originally from Rumson, New Jersey. He was appointed the executive director of the Mass Fiscal Alliance in February of 2012. He's been quoted in a number of local publications, and he writes a column in the Taunton Daily Gazette and the Fall River Herald. In the past, he was the executive director of the D.C. Republican Committee, and he served as the regional director for the Massachusetts Republican Party for almost 5 years. He's got a lot to bring to us. Welcome back to Massachusetts, Paul.
Hey, Paul.
Thank you, Sandy, for inviting me here. Before I get into it, I just wanted to, I'm getting told to lift this. Okay. Before I get started, I just wanted to do a fun little exercise. We all know who Margaret Thatcher is. She passed away, I think it was this week. And I just want to compare some of her famous quotes to some of our elected leaders in Massachusetts. All right, so Margaret Thatcher said, "Don't follow the crowd, let the crowd follow you." I thought that was pretty good. She said, "You may have to fight a battle more than once to win it." Definitely applies to today. She said about elected leaders and society, "Do you know that one of the great problems of our age is that we're governed by people who care more about feelings than they do about thoughts and ideas?" It's very true. Now let's compare some of our Massachusetts leaders. Governor Patrick, in October, right before the November 2010 election, said, "If the voters vote in that way, then I don't think we have any choice but to respect the will of the voters." Wow, pretty good. Speaker DeLeo, about 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, said, "I don't want to hear that we don't vote for taxes because we do." Not to be outdone, the Senate president said this past week, "We just sent the governor a package, which is a little different, and they have it. I bet you haven't even seen it." That's Massachusetts for you. Margaret Thatcher, one of her most famous quotes, said, and this definitely applies to Massachusetts, "The problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money." Now, isn't it funny that Governor Patrick said in 2010 to respect the will of the voters? And here we are today, where he's proposed not just a $1.9 billion tax increase, it's a $19 billion tax increase over 10 years. It's going to burden our children and our grandchildren. And that's essentially why Massachusetts Fiscal Alliance was created. It was created last year, just a bunch of people that were concerned about the future of the state. They want to make it a better place for the future generations. I'll keep this pretty short and sweet because I think the speakers have said a lot of good things. I will tell you this. We all know what's in front of us. The legislature wants to increase a huge tax package. So does the state senate, and so does the governor. In 2009, the last time the legislature and the governor proposed tax hikes, it was a sales tax. 9 members of the legislature lost their next re-election. Another 10 districts flipped. The people, the voters, are much smarter than the elected officials. We remember these things. And I just encourage the viewers to go out and run, get active, and kind of follow what Margaret Thatcher said. I have to look this up again. Don't follow the crowd, let the crowd follow you. Run for office, get engaged. That's the best thing that could happen. If they do propose this tax increase and it becomes law, things will change. Thank you.
I think Paul gets the award for the shortest speech. Our next speaker is Mike Ruby, the other founder of New Jobs for Massachusetts. And I lost your bio. You're going to have to introduce yourself. I don't know how that happened.
I'm right here, Sandy. Don't worry about it. I'll wing it.
He's going to have to wing it.
My name is Mike Ruby, H-R-U-B-Y. I'm president of New Jobs for Massachusetts, and thank you, Sandy, for that most concise introduction.
Brevity.
I, like Paul Craney, will try to be brief, because the day is long. We've had some very interesting speakers, and in fact, the sun will start setting pretty soon. Our state needs 1 million new jobs. We need those new jobs in order to put to work all of our unemployed, our underemployed, and our new graduates from the class of 2013. And our state leaders, our elected state leaders, have no interest in jobs. They're just not concerned about new jobs at all. And so New Jobs looks for the laws and the taxes and the regulations and the court cases and the bad bureaucratic attitudes that keep jobs from growing in our state. And I want to mention 2 of the barriers that might affect you. The first one is the independent contractor law that keeps regular people from working in their trade or profession, in the services, without being an employee. You have to be an employee if you're going to work in the service industries in this state. The second law is an answer to the question, is a tax, and it's the answer to the question, where did all the manufacturing jobs in this state go? And the answer is that we have a tax that chases them all out of town. We have an inventory tax. We're one of the last 9 states that have one. And that's the answer. We tax manufacturers. They can go across the border into New Hampshire. They can push their automobile inventory into Rhode Island, not pay the tax, and the jobs that the inventory creates go along with it. So we got upset when Governor Patriot proposed his $1.9 billion tax increase. We thought that doesn't pass the smell test for creating new jobs in Massachusetts. And so we tried to find out. My turn, Sandy.
It's catchy.
It takes working capital in order to hire someone new. It takes working capital to create a job and employ yourself. And nobody has actually found out how much money it takes in Massachusetts to create a new job. So using public figures, we did the analysis, and it turns out it takes $21,000, round numbers, to create a new job in Massachusetts. So we divided that number into Governor Patrick's $1.9 billion tax increase, and it turns out his tax is going to siphon off enough capital to form 91,000 new jobs per year. 91,000. That's why we have had no net new jobs in Massachusetts since 1990. The state takes all the capital away. So Tom, if he's still here, Tom was asking some questions about this, and the answer is, if you wonder why we have so many people unemployed and underemployed, if you take that $21,000 per person and multiply it by $1 million, you get $21 billion, which is about a little over half the state budget currently. So that part of the state budget, its entire function is to reduce the capital available for new jobs. So the million people that we have who are, whether they're retired and they want a part-time job and can't find one, whether they're middle-aged and want to get back into the labor market, or whether they're a fresh graduate and want to get in and get a job for the first time, all the money that would form those jobs is taken away each year out of the economy by the state. So Bob DeLeo comes along with a compromise. He said, we're going to have only a $500 million tax increase. And so this is what a compromise looks like in Massachusetts. That'll account for only 24,000 new jobs prevented or destroyed. By the way, I do want to point out that fresh asphalt in quantity costs $50 a ton. So Bob DeLeo's $500 million tax increase will buy 10 million tons of asphalt. It's enough to pave Interstate 90 westbound, 2 full lanes, all the way from Logan Airport to Seattle. That's a lot of asphalt, Bob. But you really have to read some of these bills to really figure out what's going on with in the state. DeLeo's bill is 3382, and it took me an hour and a half to read it. It's 8,900 words long, 22 pages. It's filled with a lot of quirky references. You'll love, if you like quirky legislation, you'll love this. And on pages 6 to 7, it has a sentence that's 429 words long. You can't make this up. It's right there in the legislation. This sentence changes the formula by which they tax business revenue, and they move out-of-state revenue into the state with this 429-word sentence. And they're moving that money so that they can take it, tax it. Our state's elected leaders are really totally unconcerned with job growth. So when I read legislation like this, and I'm looking forward to reading Senate President Therese Murray's bill that'll raise $800 million. They passed it on Saturday. I bet you didn't get to speak at that hearing. My mind drifts, and I remember that phrase, the consent of the governed, which of course has no application in Massachusetts at all. These tax bills won't help any new jobs grow. They siphon off the capital, so there won't be 1 million new jobs. There won't actually be any new jobs. The people want new jobs, and the government gives them more taxes. So, new jobs for Massachusetts, 1 million new jobs for Massachusetts. Thank you very much, and thanks, Sandy.
Mike, actually, I do have a question. Yes. When we say there's not going to be any new jobs, it seems that the government always finds to add new people to all of its bureaucracy.
Yes, we're thinking private sector.
I know. I'm just being facetious.
Something that could actually support itself.
Right. Our last and final speaker of the day is somebody from Acton who has the founder, I believe, of the Rabid Republican blog. Has anybody here ever read anything from the Rabid Republican blog? Well, he's more than just a rabid Republican. He is the founder and co-writer at the blog, but he's a timely activist involved in the most conservative endeavors. He's walked the neighborhoods for all GOP candidates, and he's one of the founders of the Oust Obama Coalition. How many people had actually heard of that? How many were belonging to it? Great. He's got a new project, and it's to bring a series of civics courses to the local Acton-Boxborough school, to the district. Since they probably won't be sponsored by the school's committee, he's going to attempt a series of evening courses delivered in community education. Jim feels that attracting young people to our movement is the key to the future. Jim lives in Acton with his wife Sue, and he works currently at Global Lifecycle Management. He's a manager, he is a Global Lifecycle Manager at CSC. Sorry about that, Jim. And he is the past managing director at J. Etwine Consulting, among many other experiences in life. Welcome, Jim. You rabid Republican, you.
Well, it's great to be here in front of this great crowd. You know what's really good about being the last speaker is everyone is really happy to see you come up on the stage. But I think today's topic is 7 things to do to attract young people to the Tea Party. But it's really to attract young people to conservative politics. I think it's much broader than that. And I just start by asking one question. How many people were at the Boston Tea Party on the Common on Saturday? Yeah. Great event. But sometime just after that Tea Party meeting, a bunch of those people went up to the State House to view the Senate in rare session on Saturday, where they were debating the $500 million tax increase that other people have mentioned here. And even when they cheered that they wanted no new taxes, Senate President Therese Murray actually had them ejected from the gallery. So these are taxpayers who came to see the government in action, the government actually doing what it's supposed to do, but didn't want to listen to any of those bothersome, pesky citizens about what they were talking about. They wanted to get rid of them. So this tax increase, everybody else has already mentioned it, I won't talk about it, is probably going to go in some form. It's up to us to make sure that they hear from us even after that session is over. So call and write if you can. So I think a lot of us are mad as hell about the way things are going. We feel that we don't have a voice in either our local politics, our state politics, our federal or national politics. It's just kind of getting away from us, and it's rapidly evaporating. Well, I'm pretty mad as well myself, and I hate to see what's happening to the country because it's very disappointing. It's not the country that I remember from 20 or 30 or 40 years ago. It's changed a lot. Government is restricting our freedoms. They're mishandling our funds. They're expanding way beyond what any of us could have envisioned except for President Obama's. They're actually implementing his vision. And they're doing exactly what he wants them to do. And I think it's time to call a stop to that. But at my age, I fear that I won't be around long enough to make that stop or to turn it around. And I think the key to getting that to happen is to recruit and enlist young people in these movements, in either the Tea Party or just conservative politics. And I think the key to getting that done is to take on several steps. On Saturday at the Boston Tea Party, there was a speaker, Alexis Monahan, who's from Students for Liberty, and one of her jobs is to recruit students to conservative causes on campuses. And she talked about her experience doing that. I think she's been successful at it because she tells the truth and she engages them in personal feelings levels, somebody else mentioned that as well, to get them to know what's actually going on that affects them, affects the students individually. I think that's the key for us, is to recognize the point of view of the young people we might talk to and to say, well, they're not going to be that interested in some of the wonky politics that's going on, but they will be interested in knowing that they're going to support an old guy like me in my old age and be paying a significant amount of their income to causing that to happen. So I think that step one is to go where the young people are.
That's where you can't attract them if you can't meet them. You can't attract them if you can't talk to them. So go to Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks and spend some time seeing what they're talking about. Insinuate yourself into the conversation. I've done this myself. It's not difficult to do. They don't think you're a weird old person unless you're a weird old person, but I'm pretty good at talking to them on topics like that and ask them questions that are difficult to answer. I met yesterday with Chuck Kniewicz. If you know Chuck, who ran for office, Chuck's president of the, or chairman of the Hudson RTC, and he was telling me about a program they actually have where they actually went into the Hudson High School, talked about conservative politics, and then a week later they had someone from the Democrat Party come in and talk about liberal politics. Chuck said they blew them away because they gave them the logical questions and arguments to think about, and then they knew that the Democrats were coming in the next week, and they seeded the ground for those Democrats by saying to the students, now watch when they come in. They're going to talk about all the emotional things. They're going to talk about the things that help people and do things like that. And think about what we're talking about here is what is that going to actually cost our society? So Chuck actually showed up for the Democrat presentation and sat in the back of the room and watched as some of the students during the Democrat presentation would turn around and look at him as the Democrats were saying exactly what he predicted they were going to say. So I think there is a way to reach these people. I think it all makes sense if we start to look at it. So when you see young people, step 2, engage them in a conversation with provocative statements. So what I just said, it looks like you'll be supporting me in my old age. Thanks a lot, and shake their hand. It puts them off, it gets them weary. In fact, at the first Tea Party meeting right here on this plaza 4 years ago, there were some young people signing up, and I asked them, why were they signing up for the Tea Party? And they said, are you kidding me? We're making decisions now on the taxes that are going to affect me for the rest of my life. I want to make sure I don't pay for all that stuff. Which leads me to number 3. How can we educate? Thank you. How can we educate these people, the young people, to understand what government is like and what it can or can't do or should or shouldn't do? And I would say I'm also the commander of my American Legion post in Acton, and one of the programs we sponsor young people to is Boys State and Girls State every year. Boys State and Girls State are American Legion and American Legion auxiliary programs that take high school juniors between their junior and senior year and send them to a 1-week long camp in Massachusetts at Stonehill College, where they spend 5 days setting up a state government, setting up the offices, running for office, running elections, getting elected, and then starting the state government into operation. They learn a lot. They learn a lot about what it takes. They learn a lot about what makes sense and how do politics affect what they want to do. So I think it's important. So if you know young people who are juniors this year, recommend that they look into Boys State or Girls State. And you can just get to that by legion.org is the website to find out all about that. 4th is to encourage them to come to a Tea Party meeting like this. We should have encouraged more people to come to this. And I think it's a difficult day. If the press were still here, I'd say, you know, it's a work day. It's the start of April vacation. There's all kinds of things that were working against us to get a crowd here today. I think, though, our message hasn't changed. The speakers have all had very good principles to stick along with. And I think reminding them that our principles are not what they should view as threatening to themselves. We just believe in smaller government, lower taxes, and fiscal responsibility. Seems easy, and I agree with Tom. To get into all the social programs and social arguments just is counterproductive to us, because if we can get people focused on those 3 things, we'll make a lot more progress. 5th, ask them if they like government telling them what to do. I think for young people, they hate being told what to do. Young people, I mean anybody under 30. I mean, being an old guy like me, young is a pretty relative term. Ask them if they like people telling them not only what to do, but how to do it, and how they're going to pay for it. Because they're getting all of these things that are put on to their future earnings that they don't really think about until it's too late. Be prepared when you talk about that to discuss with them how government does do these things. How do they take money out of their pocket and give it to someone else? How do they get that to happen? Tell them to read my blog, and there'll be lots of interesting and provocative things there. Some you agree with, some you don't agree with. But we get 20,000 visitors a month to the Rap Republican blog. It's a place where people come to find provocative topics. You won't always agree with them, but that's okay. You can always comment. Number 6 is If they're 18 or over, ask them if they're registered to vote. If they're not registered, have a registration form with you. Ask them to sign it. Fill it out. Tell them you'll drop it off at the town hall for them, assuming that they're in the local town, and you'll take care of it for them. I think a lot more people would vote and think about it if they were at a stake in the game. Lastly, and I'll just tell this as almost a commercial, is recommend that all of these young people come to Catherine White's Constitution Decoded group. There is probably no finer 2 hours you could spend in any month than to discuss the Constitution with people who are interested in discussing it and who don't bring politics into it at all. It's really, what does the Constitution mean and how does it affect us every day? I think when I first started going to Catherine's sessions, there were like 8 people at the Lexington Library. Now, she's had to move to a bigger place at the Woburn Sportsmen's Association, and there's easily 40 people that come there every month now. It's an amazing group. And it's not always the same 40 people. It's just a fascinating time to spend 2 hours with some interesting folks. And I think, lastly, in the end, it's up to us. Young people won't come around and seek us out unless they find something that means something to them. We have to encourage them and recruit them to our cause. The other side does this very, very well. We need to do it better. Thanks.
No questions.
Good. Thank you.
Did you see the breaking news? They just shut down the Boston Marathon. There was an explosion at the finish line.
That was awesome, Jim. Thank you so much. I want to thank everybody who did come out, and the people who missed today will have another chance to see it, because I'm going to have Stephen make us copies of all of the speeches, and every speaker will get a DVD with their group of speeches on it. So there'll be probably 3, 4, or 5 other speeches on it. You can show it on your local access cable. I would encourage you to have it at a meeting. Perhaps, Catherine, you could even show your little speech at your Constitution class. And it'll go on the website, and I'm going to recommend to everybody to do that. And this may get more press in the long run than it would have had we had 1,000 people here. I want to thank each of you for being involved and for caring about the future of our country. The fact that you did take the time to come out and speak today speaks volumes for your dedication to conservative principles, constitutional principles. We all want to be sure that the next generation is able to live better than we did. That was our parents' hope for us, and that's my hope for my children, and I'm sure it's yours as well. We don't want them to be impoverished because our government couldn't resist taxing us into poverty. It's time to stand up and be counted, and each and every one of you are, well, half of you are standing right now. It's time that we begin to actually put our feet to action, put our words into action, that we can actually begin to make a difference. You need to be involved at the very least by holding your legislators accountable for their stewardship of your hard-earned dollars. Whether at the local level, state level, or even the federal level, we need to find out what is permitted by our Constitution. And Catherine, I'm going to be schooling you and finding out exactly what things can and cannot be done legally under our Constitution. And we've got to find a way to begin to roll that and peel that stuff back. No more candy for our congressmen. No more boondoggles with the taxpayers' money. And I'm sure everyone here can come up with a litany of things that they spend our money on that they have no right to. And I would challenge each of you, when you go home today, sit down and think of 10 things that you know bother you the most, where the government spends your money while they've got their hand out for more. I know with the MBTA, they have something like 631 employees making over $100,000 a year, while they're cutting fares and they're reducing ridership and T-stops, but asking for more money, and yet they continue to hire more people while they allegedly are broke. Today is the first step for some of you. Others have been at this for some time, like a lifetime. Whether you're new or a veteran in the fight for our country, remember, if we do nothing, they will, and they will win. One way to start is to support a good candidate for the United States Senate on April 30th. But before the election, each candidate needs our help. Pick a candidate and offer to knock on doors or make phone calls or pass out literature or host a coffee or something so that they can get recognized. Everything helps. And if you can't do any of those things, write them a check. Get involved in your own town government. Help elect strong candidates with sound fiscal policies. You can make a difference. Our forefathers gave their lives to build this country. What are you willing to give? Thank you, and God bless.